Briefly, Elizaveta is, she's a lawyer. She has 2 master's degrees, one in law, one in political science, as well as a Ph.D. in law. She's also the author of 17 scientific publications. She has experience working in the international settings with both public and private sectors. And she is currently serving in the Ukrainian government as deputy of the Vinnytsia District Council. William Jeffries is a US citizen who volunteered to go to Poland and work with a non-governmental organization, a charitable organization on humanitarian aid. And our third speaker, Bruce Roberts, is from that NGO. August Mission is the name of it. And William and Bruce will talk about the work of providing medicine and food and necessaries to the people who have been suffering in the region and are flowing into Poland as refugees. And we'll have an opportunity at the end of this to take Q&A, so you can save up your questions. And I see that Bruce Roberts has joined as an attendee, so we'll promote him up to panelist, but we will get started. William, could you say a few words and then we'll bring Bruce and Elizaveta in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a volunteer with August Mission. August Mission is an organization that has had a presence in Ukraine since pretty much the start of the war. It's dedicated to helping refugees and IDPs and has raised over $500,000 for Ukraine so far. There have been 30 plus volunteers who have come through so far, myself included. And the organization, which has a fleet of, I think, about a half dozen vehicles at this point, has delivered millions of dollars of humanitarian aid. That includes medicine, food, diapers, sleeping bags, mattresses, whatever is needed or available. And in the course of our work, we have had the privilege of coming into contact with Elizaveta Savchuk, who I thought would be an interesting person for the New York City Bar Association and broader community to get to know, because she is a lawyer who's experienced all these things firsthand. So, you know, we as an NGO have had contact with the region and the violence, but we don't live in cities that are actively being shelled like Elizaveta does. So there's a unique perspective that comes from that. August Mission is going to continue to support Ukraine and provide awareness as best we can, but I think it's valuable to hear it from the people who live there. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Elizaveta.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. And first of all, I would like to thank the Association of Bar of the City of New York for allowing me to speak before such a distinguished audience. Today, it's very important for Ukrainians to tell an international audience about what is happening in our homeland, firsthand, so to say. Why is Russia invading Ukraine? It's enough interesting question for us also. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia has continued to harbor significant resentment against independent Ukraine. The country still thinks of a critical part of Mother Russia. It, therefore, considers the conquest of Ukraine as being vital for the restoration of its so-called historical Russia. Russia wishes to resemble the countries of the former Soviet Union and reverse what they call the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. But having declared independence in 1991, Ukraine has irrevocably chosen a completely different path, an independent path of democratic development, reform, and European integration. In contrast, the Kremlin has decided to go the way of conversation and groundless aspiration to restore its empire. It seems that the core values and DNA of Ukrainian society, a love of freedom, democracy, free thinking, and European values, are values that are anathema to Russia. Then they can neither comprehend nor tolerate these values. And so instead, they seeking to destroy them, our Ukraine, our country. And unfortunately, as a result, the military aggression and our right violation of all international norms and laws are the only thing that Russia can propose to encourage independent states to move within the orbit of Russian world. It's a neo-imperial project. As for international law, the Russian invasion of Ukraine is an international armed conflict, as you know, violating the legal terms of the 1977 the first additional protocol, the Hague Convention of 1908, and the Geneva Conventions. Because Russia and Ukraine attended the first protocol and the 1949 Geneva Conventions, they are subject, as you know, to international humanitarian law. Furthermore, Russia and Ukraine have signed numerous human rights treaties, including the Convention Against Torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, and the European Convention on Human Rights, illustrating that we have agreed to adhere to laws guarantee basic human rights. International human rights law and laws of war strictly prohibited military acts from targeting civilians. However, from Russian invasion, the Ukraine has made civilians and direct targets of military combat. As you know, for example, Russian missiles have targeted Freedom Square in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. Additionally, a fundamental tenet of the law of armed conflict is that civilians must be separate from military conflict. Yet many Ukrainian civilians have had to forcibly leave their homes to protect themselves from war and finding suitable refuge. Today's civilized world supports Ukraine in the difficult struggle against Putin's bloody Russia. Ukraine's worldwide and international partners have united and are provided crucial defense and financial support that brings our victory closer, and thank you all, very big thank. We are talking about both weapons and budget programs and the humanitarian component. Now I want to share my screen and show some maps in order you better understand what I'm talking about. So on this map, you can see the support from different countries, although which countries are supporting our Ukraine today in these days, enough difficult days for us, yes? Then I can tell you about, and I want to thank the United States of America, Canada, Great Britain, Australia, Poland, and other countries of the European Union who are provided and continue to supply numerous weapons and modern defense and offensive systems. All of these are already used at the front and allow for restraining and pushing the invaders out of our native land. Hundreds of billions of dollars will be needed to rebuild Ukraine, unfortunately. And in Lugano, as maybe you know, in Switzerland, during the international conference, a large-scale program for the recovery of Ukraine was presented. In addition, 15 countries have declared their readiness to take responsibility for restoring this or that region. In particular, the United States will work to restore the Kharkiv region. And thank you so much. The United States, the European Union, and all the world strongly condemned what is called an atrocity after 26 people were killed in a Russian missile strike that hit Vinnytsia on the 14th of July. Vinnytsia is my native city, and you know, it was really difficult for us to understand that it was in Vinnytsia. Wide, not very big city where no any armed forces and so on. There was a terrible explosion in the winery. An air raid alert was issued. I was in my office and we heard a strange noise like a jet plane. And a few seconds later, we heard an explosion. First one, and then the second one. You know, I'm telling you about these facts, and my heart is will break because it's enough difficult to remember that day. And at that moment, it became scary because until that day, there were no explosions in Vinnytsia. It was really enough quiet city, very safe city. But at that day, we understand that although in Vinnytsia can be war, especially when we understood that a lot of people died, especially small children. That is why today we are talking a lot around the world about our war, in order you understand that it's not only from media. Yes, it's not only from news and so on. It's unfortunately real life, and we are trying to stop these not okay things. The atrocity in Vinnytsia is the largest in a long series of brutal attacks targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure. We know that there can be no impunity for violation and crimes committed for the Russian forces and their political superiors. Russia's war on Ukraine has caused a very big humanitarian crisis in Europe. I will show you a map, and you will understand how many people moved from their houses from Ukraine to European Union. Vinnytsia region has also a humanitarian crisis. Today, nearly 200,000 people who need humanitarian assistance are staying here, and the situation is expected to deteriorate further in the winter month. Vinnytsia region has been working since day one of Russian unprovoked war to ramp up relief alongside partners to meet the needs of the most vulnerable populations, including people who have been forced to flee their homes. Residents and volunteers of countries around the world send thousands of tons of humanitarian aid to Ukraine. Film stars, show business, world-class sports, and ordinary citizens donate money. After entering the region, humanitarian aid either remains in place or it distributed further across the region. All possible recipients are taken into account here. International, public, charitable organizations, educational institutions, hospitals, cities in the line of fire, and our military. Each territory community has become a center of humanitarian assistance to our armed forces, territorial defense, and internally displaced persons. Together with partners, we have been working to restore the rights of affected Ukrainians, support them, and implement effective strategies for the recovery and socialization of internally displaced persons. IDPs have many problems, a lot of problems with recovering lost documents, to receive compensations for the destroyed property, to find money, to find houses and work, and place children in education institutions. Over the past week, Ukrainian forces have liberated near 4,000 kilometers of Ukraine from the Russian occupation. It's enough good news for us because 4,000 square kilometers, you understand that it is very, very big territory. But today, these territories are, as to say, are inhabited by people who have had problems with food, drinking water, and medicine since the first days of the occupation, and are still without light and heat due to destroyed infrastructure facilities. And that is why today we need a lot of support to try to help them and to make their life better as we can. Although I will show you a map in several seconds, maybe not now, sorry, something wrong with Zoom, map with occupied territories, and you will understand the sides of how it was and how it now. Unfortunately, the war continues, and currently a new wave of displaced people is moving from places of hostilities. The task of those who live in relatively safe areas is to provide them with everything they need. Ukrainians hope for help from the whole civilized world. The USA has consistently demonstrated leadership in many issues of support for our state, and thank you very much. We have firm faith and conviction that this will continue to be the case. We thank our foreign partners and everyone who helps Ukraine. And the task of everyone is to set their heart victory and work in their place for the results. Only together, really only together, we quickly turn over this terrible page in the history of our country and start building a new life. And I hope that in the nearest future, you will come to Ukraine and understand that here is very good country, developed country, and we will show you how it's work here, and we will show you the results of our work. And now some pictures. Here you can see that 3 and 7 million people have fled Ukraine since the start of the invasion. You see that Poland is the biggest one, the first place of our IDPs. The next one is purple color. Purple color is the places which are unoccupied from the 6th September. This is territory of near 4,000 square kilometers. This map is much bigger. The blue color is also shows this territory, which is now not under control of Russia. It is our Ukrainian territory, Kharkivska Oblast. So thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Maybe if you will have some questions, please welcome.
The questions are starting to come in. I was planning to save that until after Bruce Roberts talks, but we are just bringing him in now. So let's have a few questions while we are getting the August Mission organization connected. The first question I'm just going to read to you, and I see that we do have Bruce Roberts with us. Let me get this first question read, and then we'll go back to Bruce. Well, Bruce, can you hear us? And can we hear you say a few words?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good. Okay. Make
I'm
sure that
glad-
my audio was working there.
Thanks for coming. I know it was very late notice, and I'm glad you were able to join us. The group that you work with, August Mission, has been doing work in Ukraine that I think is important for people to hear about. And we would love to just get you to say a few words about that, and then we can go to questions and answers and talk about whatever people want. So please, Bruce Roberts.
Thank you. Thank you so much for including me. I appreciate it. I think that William did a great job of summing up basically who August Mission is and what we do. And then, of course, Elizaveta gave everybody a great current situation update about, you know, what's happening in Ukraine and where the need is and why the need. So I'll just be brief and talk a little bit about my perspective and about August Mission. I started this organization last year when the US pulled out from Afghanistan. And really it was about helping people on their worst day. People often ask me, why don't we help people here in the United States? We work solely internationally. And my answer to that is that if you make it here, you've got a safety net. If you get here, you've got resources. When people cross an international border with nothing but their clothes on their back, or when their home is bombed and destroyed and they have to displace to another place within their country where the resources are already strained, or there perhaps is no safety net, that's where we want to help people. We put our efforts in to helping people on their worst day, which is why, although we had been helping people get out of Afghanistan and get humanitarian aid into Afghanistan, when Russia invaded Ukraine in late February, we knew that this was our mission statement, this is where we had to go. So we launched our first teams in early March. And since that time, we've built a logistics chain that moves humanitarian aid from Poland into Ukraine. We have a distribution hub set up in the city of Melnitsky, and that's how we met Elizaveta in the Vinnytsia Oblast. Was we went there after the rocket attacks that she described and delivered some humanitarian aid to the people there. And because that's what we do, we try to go where the need is. So August Mission, we don't just do one thing, we do the thing that's needed. And by doing that, we've gotten involved in a lot of different, what we might call lines of effort. We've provided ultrasounds for hospitals. We've bought homes for war widows. We're helping set up a hospital in Warsaw to treat amputees of the war. We deliver humanitarian aid of all kinds on a weekly basis. And how do we do that? William mentioned that we'd raised about $500,000 this year, but we delivered millions of dollars worth of aid. And the way that we do that is by being scrappy. We're not a large organization, and we don't have a ton of money to just throw at the problem. So we try to be resourceful and and scrappy. We find aid in Poland for pennies on the dollar, or often for free. Other organizations or people will donate it to the effort, but it lands in warehouses in Poland because there's not a lot of organizations that know how to get it across the border into Ukraine, or they're unwilling to cross the border into Ukraine. And so what we have done is we resource those that aid often for free or for very cheap, and then we deliver it where it needs to go in Ukraine. Just as an example, just recently I just found I partnered with another organization here that just donated $3 million worth of medical aid to August Mission, and my only job was to figure out how to get it into Ukraine because it's here in Salt Lake City. So I partnered with another organization that's going to move it over there for us, another humanitarian organization, and then we will jointly distribute that aid. So I was able to get it for free from one organization and then deliver it or get it into Ukraine for free from another organization, and now we'll deliver that aid where it needs to go. Often these oblasts right now in the middle of the country are overwhelmed, and Elizaveta kind of explained about a new wave of displaced persons. And so just to give you an idea of what that is, what that looks like, imagine an oblast or, a county with a population of 1.2 million people absorbing 250,000 additional people. And they have to absorb that on that state level, on that oblast level, with not a lot of help from the federal government because their resources are tapped fighting the war. So it's a huge strain on the people, on the hospitals, on the school systems, on everything. And that's where we truly try to put our efforts, is in supporting those hospitals and supporting those schools and in supporting those people that have been displaced. So that's who we are. That's what we do. I'm glad I could be a part of this panel, and look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I'm going to turn to the Q&A and just read out the first couple of questions on the list. In light of Ukraine's recent military victory resulting in Russian retreat from the Kharkiv region, late yesterday, Moscow attacked infrastructure in the Kharkiv area, denying water and power for the local population. Last week, Secretary of State Blinken predicted a long military engagement. What is the best practice for the NGA to strategically straddle the tit-for-tat between the warring forces while optimizing the delivery of humanitarian aid? I'll ask for each of you to take a shot at that. Sounds possibly like, Bruce, you might have the most direct experience with that answer. You're muted. You need to turn yourself off mute.
Yeah, that's a detailed and great question. I'll take a shot at it real quickly. As a former Army guy myself that's gotten into the humanitarian world, this is the Russian playbook here is kind of what they're doing, what they did in Chechnya, which is destroy infrastructure, use mass bombing of civilian targets and infrastructure as a way to demoralize the population and bring them to the negotiating table. But I think that certain areas like Kharkiv are strongly Ukrainian. Other areas have more of a Russian influence, like the Crimea. So I don't see, and I have some inside information on this one. I know that, President Zelensky and the Ukrainians are not going to give up those Ukrainian areas. And he said over and over again, as recently as yesterday, in private meetings, that he will not give up any Ukrainian territory. So this is not going to go away anytime soon. From a military perspective, offense is a lot harder than defense. So taking land back is going to be much more difficult, and it will require continued help from other nations. If Ukraine doesn't get continued military and humanitarian aid flowing in, I don't think they're going to be able to get their territory back by themselves. So, and that's going to stretch on. That's going to take a while. So even though I know that this is, becoming not front page news, and people are getting weary of some people, unfortunately, are getting weary of hearing or fatigued of hearing about the war in Ukraine. It's not going away anytime soon, and it will continue to need international support, both from a military standpoint and also from a humanitarian standpoint. Particularly since a lot of agencies, like civilian agencies, humanitarian agencies, like my own, myself, are the ones taking the lead on distribution of humanitarian aid. We're going to need to continue to do that, and just continue to fund it. And it's not going to be easy, but I think it's going to be something we have to do.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead to, unless, Dr. Savchuk, did you want to add a little more to that answer?
I can add some words that it is a big challenge for us to help occupied territories, to help people who live here. But there are always willing Ukrainians with cars who are ready to go to the liberated territories and take everything that they need. So what we need is support from other countries, and we will get it, lift it to other territories, to people who need this help. But we need this support from Europe and maybe for the United States. Yes, we can do it. Will it do on the level of president, how they want to, to work on this sphere? Yes, to work on this question, we don't know in Vinnytsia region, yes, and other regions also don't know. That is why we are working with our own resources, and as August mentioned, helps us. Thank you very much, because it is really very important for us today.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm going to move on to the second question. There's a couple of questions starting to pile up, and we have a time limit here. So Victor is asking, we have seen many reports of Ukrainians being deported from occupied territories to Russia. How many people are affected? And what can you tell us about how they've been treated in Russia?
Maybe I will answer. It's hard to say anything, as we don't know now enough official reports that what is happening. Really, we don't have it. We don't know what we need, but we know that we need to work to find legal ways to return our citizens home as soon as possible. Although many children have been taken out, and it's really not okay, really bad. Taken out, and it worries not only Ukraine, but also other international institutions. We believe that the Ukrainian authorities will do everything possible to solve these issues. How? We will see in the future. I hope in the nearest future.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. This is from Taisa. We hear a lot from smaller organizations like August Mission doing amazing work with very few resources. What are the major NGOs like UNICEF or CARE doing? Should they be doing more, or should they be doing something differently? This informs donations.
I'll take a shot at that one, and then maybe William wants to chime in on it. So the UNICEF, CARE, UNHCR, Catholic Relief Services, some of the big ones, they move a little bit slower because they're I mean, just like any organization that's has a lot of bureaucracy, it takes them longer to get going. And they admittedly will tell you that as well. UNHCR is looking at a 10 to 20 year plan here, right? That they're looking to take care of displaced persons and people that have been permanently homes destroyed and repaired 10 to 20 years down the road. So they're putting together a long-term plan. In the meantime, there's a lot of help that needs to be done on the ground. The other issue with the really large organizations that they're not as small or nimble as we are, they can't pivot to address specific needs. They have a lot of resources they can throw at it, but the other problem with big organizations is that they also have a lot of liability. So sometimes they won't go work in an active war zone because their insurance carriers won't allow them to, which is why a lot of the aid gets stuck in Poland and doesn't make it across the border, because it's a lot of the small organizations that are willing to take it in that don't carry the same amount of liability as the big organizations. That's a very frank answer. It's not a perfect answer. There are some bigger organizations that are starting to work more, getting more involved inside of Ukraine. And certainly they are helping massive refugee populations in Poland and other neighboring countries. William, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would add that if you look at what it's like on the ground here in Poland, there's just a huge amount of goodwill from ordinary people, regular citizens who are just trying to help because they see a crisis. And so huge amounts of in-kind donations come in, and they come in from organizations that really have no structure at all. And they pile up in warehouses all over the country, not just all over Poland, but all over Europe. It's actually quite difficult to even get them into Poland, let alone into Ukraine, because these are not professional NGOs that are doing the collection. It's some local church or some local community group. They don't have the connections or the experience to figure out how to move these resources. Big organizations, they just ignore it. They don't, I mean, it's a whole other challenge. They have their own supply chains. They don't work with the other smaller NGOs. And so as a result, I can't turn to these big organizations and say, hey, we have 12 pallets in Poznan in Poland. We need a driver to go pick those up with a truck. They won't take our calls. We're too small. And it would be too difficult to pick up at every warehouse that exists. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of warehouses, let alone trying to get stuff into those warehouses for staging. And so you really do need a robust network of smaller NGOs to work together, because there's a huge amount of aid that can be captured because of all that goodwill. And so that's why I think it's important to continue to support organizations like August Mission that are able to take advantage of these smaller, more impromptu generosities and get them where they are needed.
I have a couple of questions more coming in, but this one seems to follow on. So let me bring it up now. This is from Gertrude Pfaffenbach. If convoys or individual Ukrainians can move material in their private cars, are those individuals at risk of attack from Russians? And could routes be mapped to get the humanitarian aid in without risking those attacks? Is there a way to form a network? I don't know if anybody wants to respond to that.
I'm sure William's seen a lot of that, and I can respond a little bit as well. And that's happening. So small groups, people with vans, with cars, they're unencumbered by large bureaucracy or being part of an organization. There's tons of people that just went over there and started doing this. And yes, it's safe, right? There's no way for the Russians to pinpoint you, to target you, unless you're driving into a Russian occupied territory on the east side. There's a lot of people that just on their own initiative have showed up and started trying to help. And so, as kind of William alluded to, part of it is organizing those efforts a little bit. We've brought in other groups under our umbrella and tried to give them purpose and direction, and tell them where they can go more specifically, help them source aid in Poland to get it over, because there's, as he mentioned, there's plenty of it sitting there that people don't know how to get into the country. Well-intentioned folks all over the world have sent massive amounts of aid, but it lands in Poland or Romania and then sits there. And the big organizations, they're doing their own thing. They got tons of money, so they kind of do what they want. There's a lot of smaller organizations like us that can't afford just to throw money at the problem. So we have to find people we can work with. We have to find synergies with other organizations that do something well that we don't necessarily do. So then we can work together to make it happen. But yeah, to your question, it's pretty safe to drive on most of the roads. The bigger trick is just knowing how to navigate customs and getting back and forth across the border.
We're getting close to the end of our 45-minute session, and I want to thank each of you and the New York City Bar for helping to platform this information. Before we end, I think it would be really helpful if each of you three could just make a final wrap up statement about what it is you'd like the members of our audience who are New Yorkers to take home after this, what message you want them to take away from this. And I'd like to start with William and end with Elizabetta. Could you sum up your thoughts about this in a few words, William?
Yeah, I would say that it's important to continue to talk about this issue, to keep this top of mind even as the news cycle starts to move on. I've noticed that it has become increasingly difficult to convince friends and family and colleagues and such to donate or to stay engaged on this issue. And I think it's really critical that we continue to do that, because if we don't, it will be extremely difficult for Ukraine to win this war. And I think that's part of Russia's strategy, right? Like, they know that the West has a short attention span, and that's an advantage for them that I think they're going to try and use. So please don't forget about Ukraine. This is an important issue, and it's not going away. There are lots of ways to get involved. If you want, you could do what I did. You can fly to Poland, buy a van, get involved with an organization and start delivering humanitarian aid. That's a bit extreme. You don't have to do that, right? You can donate, you can volunteer in other ways. You can go to augustmission.org and see, other work that the organization is doing. And there are lots of organizations that are doing great work that you could get involved in. So yeah, I guess that's my recommendation is don't let the news cycle move on. Keep this top of mind and stay engaged.
Just to kick off your words, Bruce, I want to read you a question that just came in from Thaisa Marcus. Is there a way to pressure the major NGOs into cooperating on logistics?
That's a great question. I have not I have not found one yet. Honestly, sometimes the best way is by having a personal relationship you can leverage, right? If there's a lot of trust issues going around, there's a lot of small individuals and organizations that have popped up. And so what we find is ourselves vetting each other. And sometimes, once again, it's about liability. They want to make sure that the people they work with are trusted, and they want to make sure also that the aid they donate gets delivered appropriately. If I'm being quite honest, there's a lot of black market activities that have popped up, and people are grabbing this aid and they're selling it. And, there's unscrupulous people that take advantage of a situation like this, human trafficking, all kinds of stuff. And so, there's some trust issues even amongst organizations, and you have to establish those relationships and establish that trust in order to work together effectively. The bigger ones are harder to work with for some of those reasons. Once again, they're protecting themselves. So, to William's point, find an organization that you feel good about supporting. You can volunteer with them. You can donate. I would encourage any of you, if you want to see what August Mission does, come volunteer with us. We take volunteers over for 2 to 3 weeks at a time and put them to work delivering the aid, and they can go work with us side by side. And often those are the folks that become our biggest advocates, because they see exactly how we operate and how we spend our money and what we do. And they meet people like Elizabetta face to face and have real conversations. So I would encourage you to come volunteer with us if you have time in your schedule. If not, just stay connected to what's going on. As William mentioned, Russia's playing the long game here, and they're waiting to see how we respond and how the rest of the world responds. And if we let them get away with this, what message are we sending? So I think that we have to stay engaged, and even despite what our government may or may not do, we as private citizens have a choice, and we can be heard, and we can still make a difference. And so that's what we're trying to do. But I really appreciate the invitation today and the opportunity to speak. And I appreciate all of you that are listening. And thank you, Diane, for putting this together.
You are more than welcome. I am going to turn this over to Elizabeta so that she will have the last word. Before I do that, questions are kind of pouring in, and I just want to give an answer to Oksana, who asked for the websites. The New York City Bar website is nycbar.org. And I also want to mention that this presentation is being recorded and will be posted on the New York City Bar YouTube channel, where it will live in perpetuity, and hopefully the message will continue to spread. And now I would like to turn this over to Elizabeth Savchuk for whatever it is you would like to say as a closing statement.
Thank you very much. Only a few words. First of all, one more time, I want to thank our foreign partners and everyone who helps Ukraine. Thank you for the Association of Bar of the City of New York, and thank you for August Mission. Diane, thank you that you helped organize this meeting today. It's really a great pleasure for us and for me. And, you know, we will try to do the best one here in Ukraine. We will try to develop our country after the war. We are looking for that this war will continue after several months, 1 or 2 months. And at the spring, we will invite you here to our country, and we will show you how we are rebuilding it. And please don't forget about Ukrainians, and please pray for Ukraine. Thank you.